Welcome to Lip Service for Contractors. Here you'll learn what moves the needle in your business. With your hosts, Brigham, the deep thinker, Josh, the $100 million contractor, Zach, the confused millennial, Laura, the foreigner. Lip Service. It's not about dictatorship. It's about leadership. It's not about duplication. It's about innovation. It's not about stuff. It's about your people. Strap in and get ready for some lip service.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Lip Service for Contractors. Today on Lip Service, we're talking about levers and how to build levers into your business. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share us on social media. We're going to talk about levers and all of that in 60 seconds.
Power Selling Pros is the customer service coaching company for contractors. Their one-on-one coaching for CSRs helps contractors book at least 85% of their calls and wow more customers. And their group training for technicians helps you create a better buying experience in the home and close more sales. Visit powersellingpros.com to learn more about how you can make more money with their coaching programs.
Chances are you love what you're hearing on Lip Service for Contractors. And if you want to go deeper, have an actionable playbook, or just want to learn from some of the most successful and profitable contractors in the industry, check out Clover Marketing from Josh and Laura. They give away free, amazing information, tools, SOPs, scripts, and processes that help their family business grow to over 140 million. And those same tools have helped other contractors in the industry blow up their business and grow an average of 20% every single year. Check out growwithclover.com/free gifts. They update the free gifts section all the time, so make sure you keep coming back.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Lip Service for Contractors, the home service podcast where we talk about leadership, innovation, and people. And today, you got myself, the confused millennial, Laura, and Josh talking about levers. Laura or Josh, why don't you introduce us to the concept of levers for those who are as confused as me and may not know what you're talking about?
Don't you know you're supposed to name someone specifically? You can't go Laura and Josh.
Well,
You're that guy who gets in a car wreck and is like, somebody call the police.
this is why
Assign someone.
This is why I love the confused millennial title, because it gives me leeway to make mistakes like this and kind of not look as stupid. I mean, he's confused, so it's fine.
Or at least your stupidity is accepted.
Oh, that's hard.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a misguided title, but you seem to like it.
I do seem to like it. It's a helpful lever.
He's about setting expectations, it's under promise, over deliver. That's what Zach's all about.
Right. I'm all about.
I'm more about like over promise and over deliver.
Oh, okay. I get it. All right. So Laura, what's a lever?
A lever is essentially a strategy that you have built ready in your back pocket to pull at any point to fix any problem that you're currently facing. If that is, you have a sales goal and you are X amount of dollars short of your sales goal, what are the strategies that you as an organization have prepared and ready to pull and lean on in order to meet your sales goal? That would be an example. And the importance of levers is profound, and we can go into that. But what we also need to touch on today, to make sure we do, Josh, is building the mindset of lever pulling into your organization. So it's not just you as a business owner that are like, well, crap, we're low on sales goals. Let's think about what levers we're going to pull. The whole organization as a whole are continually keeping an eye on your numbers, where you're at, and are aware of levers that you guys have available to you that can be pulled at any time. So it's not just like, for example, Paul Kelly would always say he's never stopped talking about levers, and Josh was the same when he was there. It was almost a 2-year thing where they literally never shut up about levers until it became so part of the culture that everyone in the organization now, and we do this in Clover, think levers. So, for example, we came back from Ireland, and when Josh and I are here, we probably drive the business a little bit more aggressively than when we're not. So hitting stretch goal is pretty typical for our organization. When we came back from Ireland, we were a little bit further from stretch. And immediately before we ever even came back, they were talking about they had levers in the works that they wanted to run by us. So again, that was just a demonstration of our ability to ingrain that in our culture. And if you can ingrain that in any culture, it's only a matter of time before meeting sales goals is almost inevitable.
Well, sales goals is like one example, but levers are for
Correct.
multiple things. Right. So let's start with really what is a lever, the importance of lever. I think it's easier to start with the importance of levers. Like if you never want to miss a goal again, ever, not once, levers. Like it's a guaranteed way to hit numbers. When I say guaranteed, I don't take that lightly. Like it's a guaranteed way to hit any goal, any number that you want, as long as you have enough levers in place and you're prepared. If you don't have the levers in place and you're not prepared, you can still hit goals, but you're not going to hit them every time. I want to hit them every time without exception. And levers are something that's short term. So to kind of define it, it's something you turn on and off. Like an example would be like, hey, we do sales training every week. That's not a lever. That's a process. That's part of your system, right? That's what you do every week. That's not a lever. A lever would be an example is like, hey, we have a technician whose numbers really fell off. Tomorrow I'm doing a ride along with him. Tomorrow I'm bringing him into the office. Hey, I'm going to run an incentive structure specifically for that tech. I'm going to make a special offer for him. I'm going to have a conversation. These are all levers, right? And these are all minor levers. So the thought process of a lever, it basically is, I have a marketing background and operations background. Zach and Laura are more marketing. Certainly Laura still does quite a bit of operations, but I think of a business like a funnel, right? And at each step of that funnel, there's leaks. If I don't have enough calls, how do I get the phone to ring tomorrow? Most companies don't have a strategy for this. They say, well, the marketing's not working. Sit on your hands and wait. But you can pull levers. That I can pull levers today to fill the board tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like guaranteed. Zach, we've not really hit you up with this, but like if I needed calls tomorrow and I'm an AC company, what are a few things I could do?
Turn on the Facebook ads. You could run some Google ads. You could run an email campaign. From what I understand, a lever is essentially an activity you do to bring in a predictable result.
Correct. Right. It's preset. So like email, text message campaign. The key to this is like, if you're going to have a system of lever pulling, you can't be like, oh shit, I need calls tomorrow. Let's figure out what we need to do. We need to have it preset. Like, hey, I've got these 3 emails in my back pocket. Which one of the 3 do we want to send here in a half hour?
Yeah. 100%.
Text message, ringless voicemail, increasing your PPC budget for a day, right? Let's have it set up with our PPC company. The moment I send an email to you and I say double the budget for 24 hours, they know exactly what that means. There's no conversation that needs to be had. And they increase that PPC budget it doubles the budget for 24 hours and it automatically turns off that 24 hours. Like, let's have that preset. Yeah.
And the same thing goes for if your board is full, you can turn your PPC budget off and save your budget for days that you need to pull levers. It kind of works the same way.
Right. If you do email blast fairly regular, you're good at reaching your customers, or you have this direct mail campaign that you do, right? Like if you're booked out 2 weeks, don't send it.
Right.
Let's wait.
So basically, one of the ways I heard it described that was really helpful for me was in advertising. So I'll give advertising as an example, because I think everybody relates to it. Everybody can understand it. But basically, when you're testing your advertising, you want to get it to the point that it is a lever, meaning you want to get it to the point that every time I put $100 into my ads, I'm getting $200 back.
Yeah, I base things more on cost per lead for that, but like we're not just talking about marketing too, right? Like a good example that a lot of people that really resonates with people is like, hey, my install board isn't full tomorrow. Can you increase your marketing for install leads? You can. That's a potential option, but it's pretty hard to do because there's just such a small amount of people. What you really want to do is get more leads and close the leads you have. Right. Yeah. So we can run a promotional. Hey, for every lead that turns over today, we get an extra $50 to that technician. That instantaneously gets more. Or you can call code red on the salespeople, right? Most people have a sliding scale of pay. So, hey, if it's a full broke price, you get 10%. If you discount $1 to 5%, you get 8%, 7, 6, you get exactly. Most people are doing this. If you're not doing this, you should be doing this with salespeople, right? What if for one day I called a code red and for the next 24 hours, because I'm not full, I said, hey, you could discount up to 20% and not.
Yeah.
And you still get your 10%. All of a sudden, it's like their closing percentage is crazy. Now you can't run that lever every day, right? Because in the league, but there's all kinds of levers in your business. If you really thought about each section of your business, there's something that can go wrong or consistently does go wrong that you could have preset answers for to fix it short term.
Okay. So
like an easy executable way to do that. It really doesn't. You can either create, those like spider diagrams where this is the problem, do this, do this, do this, or even simpler, an Excel sheet linking straight to an SOP on how to pull that particular lever.
yeah. So I just typed this in the chat. One of the ways that I've heard this, I've never heard the term levers the same way, but I think it's essentially the same concept, right? Is everything in your business comes down to a really simple formula. I'm sure we're being oversimplistic, but that's fine. It's E plus R equals O. E is the event. What situation are you in right now? Install board's not full enough. Not getting enough phone calls. Don't have enough leads. There's a problem, right? You have an event. R stands for response, or in this case, lever. What is your response going to be? What lever are you going to pull in response to the situation, to the event you're in, right? And then O is the outcome, meaning what goal are you trying to achieve? So if the event is install board is empty, outcome we want is install board is full, you just have to figure out the middle part of the equation, which is what activity can we do right now that will predictably help us get the outcome we want.
So I love thinking about the outcome you want before the lever is even pulled. And then how far short or how far did you exceed that outcome? If you exceeded that outcome and it's a solid lever, wonderful. Use it next month or use it when you might need it. If you fall so short of that outcome, maybe it's not that the lever isn't effective. It might just mean that the copy of that text campaign needs to be changed.
Yeah.
So pulling levers is important, but tracking the results of those levers is also key.
Yeah. We literally went through this exercise and went through the entire air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical business, like all the things that could go wrong and all the levers. And like, it's substantial. Like, I don't have enough leads. I mean, we had like 50 levers to pull, right? Potential levers, right? The key to all of this is that you're a numbers driven business, and everybody should be a numbers driven business if you really want to be successful, large, and scalable, right? So what I mean by that is like, hey, if I don't have any calls for my techs, pulling the lever to get more calls may be something that you need to do, but it may not be the answer. You need to know your metrics, because is it, hey, I'm not getting people to call me, that's a problem, or is it I'm not converting on the phone? Because that's a different problem with different levers. Because if I just pour more calls onto it, I can mitigate some of it, but it's not really solving the issue.
Yeah.
So when you have to track at each section of your business exactly where you're losing customers and losing the money and having issues.
And to the analogy Josh used is everything business is essentially a funnel, and where in that funnel is there leaks?
So if I'm understanding you correctly, the first step in using levers to grow is you have to start measuring things.
Correct.
Yep. Because if you don't measure and track stuff, you simply can't know, right?
Your numbers aren't hitting. Which lever should I be pulling?
Yeah, you're just guessing. You're totally guessing. Okay. So you start tracking activity, measuring what is working, what is leading to the results you want, what's not. That way, when a problem arises or when you need a certain outcome, you can look back at what you've tracked and say, hey, in the past, we did this to increase our phone calls, or we did this to increase the booking rate. We did this. Let's do it again. That is what we mean when we say pull the lever, is go back and do again the thing that has worked in the past.
Right. And it's something as simple as Laura kind of mentioned, like, let's say we need more call volume, right? Or we need to do sales recovery because our closing percentage is too low on service or install, right? Or whatever the problem is, right? If it's a text message is that lever, right? You better know how many texts you sent before and what kind of conversion you got off of it. And was that successful or not? If you're sending 1,000 text messages out and you generated one call, not very effective. It doesn't mean you can't do that again. It just means you shouldn't do it the exact same way, because what you did didn't work. Maybe it's at the wrong time. Maybe it's the wrong message. Maybe it's the wrong offer. Maybe we sent it to the wrong people. There's a lot of variables, all things you could test. Super easy. And once you've proven this, like for 1,000 text message, I expect 50 calls.
Yeah.
That's the goal. So if I hit 50 calls, now it goes in my back pocket. Next time I have this issue, I have one potential lever I could count on and predict. And by the way, if I need 100 calls and I can only get 1,000 for that 50, I either need to send 2,000 texts or I need to pull an additional lever.
So here's an interesting question. What is the most surprising lever you have ever seen work for a contract? Like something that worked not just once, but worked repeatedly that you would not have guessed.
It's not things that you wouldn't have guessed. Like,
That's the whole point.
they're like, it's like, holy shit, I never thought about that. Like, there's so many things that we all know, we've all heard of, but you're not tracking the results and you're not using them properly. Like,
Or using your software's capabilities even to make pulling those levers easy. Like I spoke with somebody yesterday who, when they go to pull a text campaign lever, they're manually texting off their mobile phones. That's obnoxious when they pay for Service Titan, who has this that has this capability, or there's other softwares that are even easier.
like a text relay is even better than Service Titan.
Is better, yeah.
Or there's 50 softwares. Like, yeah, if you're doing manual text, like that's a terrible way to text people. You can't scale that.
What I would say to that is, like, when you're pulling levers, make sure you're pulling them efficiently too. And an efficient way to also think about a lever working and not working is I'm actually reading, I'm studying this dude right now. He's this like famous marketer in Australia. And when I look back at all the things that have worked for us in the past and have worked for our different members, the number one thing that is almost always wrong if something's not converting is not the time, it's not some hack, it's the offer sucks. It's almost always the offer, or enough value wasn't portrayed or communicated for them to think the offer's compelling enough. So you can have.
Yeah, that's generally true.
It's typically true.
Yeah. And here's a key to this too, right? Like we keep focusing on it because I think it's fairly obvious, right? But if I don't have the board full, if I don't have enough calls, most people pull the lever of telemarketing. And I'm not telling you shouldn't pull that, but they don't pull the lever of text messaging and emailing, which is still hitting your customer base the same way calling is. But what's the cost of sending a text message, Zach?
Oh, I mean, it's like, I don't know.
Half a cent?
Yeah, a penny.
About half a cent.
You'd say? Okay.
0.5 to 0.7, depending what system you
Like 0.3.
What's the cost of making a phone call?
More.
Way more. Because if it lands, you have to pay a spiff too.
You got to pay the person. You got to pay commission.
Opportunity costs. Like they pull the most expensive levers first.
If you have a small call center and they're all on the phone telemarketing, you could miss an install opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, that's the worst is like, hey, with a few inbound calls we're getting, we're not taking because we're outbounding, which is, crazy. That's a different kind of problem. That's a systematic problem. You have the wrong process in place in general, right? But to be clear, I'm not saying like if the calls are slow, you shouldn't telemarket to your customer base. You should, but it's not the first lever you pull because it's one of the most expensive ones. Go after the low-hanging fruit first. Email is practically free. Text message, reach out on social media. You can do a PR. There's literally like 50 plus ways of levers that you could pull to fill the board tomorrow. And some of those levers are only good for 5 calls. Some of those levers are good for 500 calls if you're scalable with enough of them, right? And to be clear, like if you need 20 calls, do not send a text to 5,000 people because you're going to get way more than 20 calls. And then you're not going to convert them over the phone, right? Like,
if you don't, you need to clean up your CRM.
Interesting. It's just like a math game, right?
It is.
When you think about it, it's kind of fun, right? Like, oh man, we started tracking things better when we developed a relationship with you guys. And marketing has actually been more fun in the last 2 or 3 months, actually having information to work with. Like last week.
Yeah. What are the odds?
It's crazy. I don't know. Whatever. And like last week, for example, me and another guy on our team were pulling out all the conversion rate numbers for different lead sources and individual sales reps and stuff. Because we went in with our guesses, right? Like this is what we think is going to be the results. And it was not that way, right? We were surprised to see the results, but it's super helpful because as soon as we see the numbers, you immediately feel less stress because, wow, I actually know what's going on now. You feel more confident about what you're about to do next because if what happens next is anything like what happened the last 6 months, which is pretty likely, then we know what we need to do to get more customers in here, right?
Yeah.
And then number 3, I mean, it takes like pride and ego out of it, right? Because when you don't have that information, when you don't have a lever to pull, it's just your pride and your guesses and your assumptions that you're relying to pull you through. And when you're wrong, it's crushing. But when you have the numbers, it's not about your pride. It's just what works, what didn't.
Yeah, it's basically like, well, we did something wrong here. What do we think is the most likely culprit? And then you test that. And all of a sudden, I mean, that's basic marketing 101. I love having this conversation sometimes. Like some people, maybe they don't know who I am or my background or whatever. They're like, oh, Steve, like he's the best marketing guy I know. I'm like, what makes you say that? It's like, oh, he's so creative. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean shit. There's people who win awards. I know like marketing companies, right? Large, successful, like we got this award. We're so excited. We're so creative. It's like, okay, what was the ROI on that? Well, I don't know. We don't track that. It's like, okay, let's talk to your consumers. Like, oh, you're a customer of the company. You're like, yeah, our business is actually, it's pretty flat. Really excited. It should work eventually. I'm like, you've been running this for 6 months. Like,
yeah,
this is a bad ad, no matter how creative it is, right? Like, it's all about your efficiency on marketing. It's all about your efficiency in your business. If I could, at Parker & Sons, one point we got all the way, I got it all the way down to $12 cost per lead, right? No matter how much someone outspent me, I would make more money. I have more profit. And when I have more profit, I have more money to spend on marketing. It became inevitable, right? And that's how you judge success on all of these levers. If you have 3 text messages and all of them deliver over the 50 per 1,000, right? That means if one's delivering 100 and the others are delivering 60, guess which fucking one I'm using? Like,
What it also,
I'll send 500 texts instead of 1,000. Like, let's be efficient about this. Let's be smart.
it facilitates you as a business owner to not shutting an idea down necessarily.
Yeah.
Instead, your response is, all right, let's test it. What do we think? What do you think? What do you think the result would be? How will we execute it? And then let's track our results. Because
it's not so much what you think. Let me pull that back though, because it's not what you think. It's what would be an acceptable win.
Yes and no. Because if a person is pulling a lever, they have an assumption that the lever will work. So what is their assumption? What does working even mean? Working to me might mean 20 sales. Working to you might mean 10. So what is their assumption? Do they think pulling this lever will get 10 sales? If they think that, they're like, then now you can say, okay, great, that's fine. Let's test that. And let's compare what your assumptions are against, reality. And the best business owners are not those that just combine, that just run life through their gut. And I'm all about listening to your gut, but you need to marriage both gut and logic. And logic is only accurately measured when you can track it. Because you can have an assumption, you can have a gut feeling about something, and if you can back that with data, heck yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna chime in here with the idiot's guide to tracking and levers right now, okay? Because the learning curve on this for me was embarrassing, right? I'm like
me and Zach worked together for what, 2 months.
Yeah, it took a long time. It took me a long time. I'm like a naturally creative thinker. I hate to say creative even. That's just like the default word. But, I got in as a customer service coach and a salesman, right? Not necessarily with these types of skills. So the learning curve was hard. And I imagine there's lots of people listening to this who are the same way, that this makes sense logically. And if you gave me a test, like you said, here's the test, do the multiple choice or fill in the blanks, I'd probably get a really, really good score on it. But then in application, I felt like I was speaking Chinese. It was so confusing to me. So my only 2 things that really helped me understand this was, okay, it's just the scientific method. That's it. The scientific method you learned every year in middle school and high school. Make a hypothesis, run a test, look at the results, and draw conclusions. That's all it is. It's a scientific method. And if you're struggling to actually track it, invest in software. Like freaking good software. Because after me and Google Analytics were having angry couple fights for 2 months and getting angry at each other repeatedly because the day before I was going to have a conversation with Josh, I'd go in and I'd be like, fetch. I don't know what's going on here. And then finally, it took Josh's advice, switched it all over to a software called ClickFunnels. I don't imagine most contractors would use ClickFunnels, but it makes it dead simple and easy, right? Because now it's all just, everything just tracks itself, right? I hired some guy to help me build a spreadsheet so that I wouldn't have to, do that anymore either. Point is, just invest the money in good software or tools or people who can set it up for you. And remember, it's a scientific method. That's it.
Yeah.
That was helpful for me because your job is to make decisions, right? Your job is not to be an analyst. At least that's my opinion.
And yeah, I mean, you do a little bit of both, but I agree. Like, I forget what book it is, but they all kind of say the same thing. I think it's Lean Startup, which is an amazing book.
It's basically, if you haven't read that, Zach, and what helped you understand the importance of tracking was the scientific method, the Lean Startups, you'll love it.
Yeah. I mean, so the whole thought process is like assumptions in life and especially in business are dangerous. Don't go with assumptions. You can eliminate most assumptions without spending a lot of money. It's like, I think this is working. I want to know it's working.
Yeah.
And anybody who tells me like, yeah, you can't figure this out, I'm like, no, you're wrong. Like branding, like we talk about this all the time. I'm a marketing guy. Like branding's hard to track. It is hard to track individually. However, before branding, after branding,
there you go.
Which one's more effective overall? Like you should see a difference. And if you're not, then you're doing a shitty job branding. Yeah.
Now that said, I think the one caveat to this is that it's still okay to follow your gut sometimes. Because there are situations where you're like, let's come up with a hypothetical here, right? Like,
okay,
we'll go back to the install board. The install board's empty.
Yep.
And you're talking with your team like, hey, we need to get 50 calls on the board. Yep. What are we going to do? And you've got all these levers that you could pull, right? We could run a text campaign, email campaign, Facebook campaign. We could do some outbound calling. But then somebody in the office,
run a special. I mean, there's
there's all those things you can try. But then there's also, let's say there's some new method, right? Like, I don't know, I'll just come up with AI. There's like an AI software that you've been wanting to try out and test and use. I guess I'm actually proving my own point wrong while I say this out loud. But I was going to say is, if you've got a gut feeling, even though the numbers are against you technically, like there's something that's obviously going to work better right now, but you have a gut feeling that we should try something different, it's still okay to follow your gut sometimes, right? It's okay.
I think it's fine to follow. It's fine to follow your gut once you can learn from it. I don't mind spending money to learn.
Oh yeah. So I mean, I think it's as simple as this. You could follow your gut. Like following your gut implies that you're going without tracking. Create a hypothesis first, define what success looks like, and AI, like whatever, you want to do this new chat bot and we're going to reach out to a bunch of people and it's super exciting. It has this AI experience. It's so cool. Let's give it a try. If I ran that and we got nothing off of it, it's no longer a gut feeling.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like, you just tested it. You
so
got
rid of an assumption. It's better to test it when you don't.
The whole point.
Yeah.
Well, it's better to test it when you don't need it. But if that's the case, and like, hey, we want to try something totally new, why don't you pull that as a second or third lever? So you're going to get the calls and see if this works. Don't just not have the board full. You have to err on the side, like, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make sure this works. Not like, let's do as little as we can, see if it still works. So like pull more levers than you need sometimes, and that's okay. If you get 10% more calls than you need, or your closing percentage jumps to 80% and you only need 70%, or you want to pull lever for recruiting attention and you only need 3 guys and you get 5 guys, this is a great problem to have. What you don't want to do is I need 3 guys and I get none.
Yeah.
Because I didn't pull enough levers. Hey, we're not converting over the phone. I pulled this lever, which was a half measure. And we moved up by 3% conversion and our board's still empty. To me, like going with your gut, as weird as it sounds, isn't a strategy. it's a reaction. You can go with your gut and have reactions. And we do this all the time, but you verify after the fact. And then it's no longer going with your gut anymore. Now you're proving or disproving the value to it. If you do the AI, and that's a crazy example, but the AI, right? And you never check on the numbers and you never follow up and you invest even more in it and even more in it, and you never saw if it worked. That's dumb. That's bad business. That's going with your gut, like full on. Don't do that. That's a mistake. You're muted, Zach.
No, that makes sense.
So listeners might be wondering, like, okay, so how do I build this into my culture? And there's like simple ways. If you have a stand-up meeting with your team every day or every week, in that meeting, you need to start just harping on levers and get them excited about levers. Get them excited, like get them to see it like a game, like you were mentioning that. But it needs to be brought up if you have standard meetings, it needs to be brought up there. You need to, the time that you have the most influence is typically when you have everybody's full attention, which is commonly at a meeting. And that's the time to start speaking about it, and then have them start influencing the people that they're in charge of as well.
Yeah, a perfect example of this, and I'm not going to name the name of the organization, but a lot of people know it, and they really recommend daily huddles. But the way they do it is just not ideal, right? And I've been to several companies that worked with this large organization, and it's like, so here are the numbers. We have 5 opportunities today. We have 25 calls. We're supposed to be at 15 opportunities and 40 calls. Okay, next topic. It's like, whoa. Just announcing it doesn't change anything, right? Okay, what are we doing to get those 10 opportunities? What levers do we pull?
Right.
And the goal would be not just for you to not even have to ask that question after a while, but for Joe, call center manager, to say, so we're actually 10 opportunities short, but I sent a text message to 1,000 people and we put together this specific offer. It's due to go out right after this meeting, as long as everybody's okay with it. Like,
meeting with the right people often enough can solve any problem. But if you're meeting with the right people often enough and just voicing what's going on, that's not even remotely conducive. But you're getting everybody together. You're getting all the right people together. Now just require critical thinking.
Yeah.
Don't just accept things, because shit, you could text each other that.
It's funny, like literally, it's literally been dozens of times. And it's this with this one larger organization. They teach it a specific way. And literally, like, we're down calls. Our revenue is not going to be high enough today, wherever it is. And they'll go, but plumbing's really well. And like, that's the end of the conversation. Like, whoa. Just saying that we're falling short. We're not reacting to that. We have to pull a lever. We have to do something. Wow. And here's another part to this too. And Laura mentioned it, right? But like, levers go both ways. If you're totally full, turn stuff off. Why spend the money if you can't satisfy the customer? If you're 6 weeks out on install, I was talking to somebody earlier today, 6 weeks out on install, and their closing percentage is super low, right? Like, maybe I shouldn't be paying for leads, because every customer I come in, I burn permanently. No one wants to work with a company that takes 6 weeks to come see them. Like, they don't call you back next time and be like, maybe it's a better experience this time. Like, you've just created a terrible experience for a customer and you've lost the customer. And you spend money to get that customer that you can't fulfill anyway.
And what you can do is, like, say your CSRs, say it's a busy day, the board's full, your CSRs don't need to be telemarketing. Instead, you can choose the most creative or best thinker CSR,
or do other things,
and have them build levers that don't have to be pulled, but they're there ready to be pulled when needed. Versus, and that's facilitating them and giving them the freedom to work on the business.
So just for the company I was talking to today, 6 weeks out, like the lever you need to pull is hiring more installers. Like, why we had this conversation is like, okay, here's 10 things you could do today to get interviews for installers this week. By the way, talk to me about your install process. Turns out his installs were taking multiple days, 3 days for most jobs. Like, okay, that's a problem. here's some levers you could go to go fix that, because you should be doing most installs that day. Some installs, because the type they are, 2 days. By cutting those 3-day jobs to 2 days, you could do a lot more installs. And all you have to do, right? Simple things like, hey, do we have a checklist to make sure they're bringing everything in and out? When's the last time you did a ride along in an install and just saw what they were doing, right? Do we incentivize them for finishing early, right? Like simple basic stuff.
Like you could even, this is just a thought that came to my head. And I don't know how, not all business owners like to even entertain the thought of automation because it scares them. But you could set up email automation where say halfway through the end of every month, you're like, how are we doing? What levers are we pulling? And it's just, it goes out. So you're again building this culture of levers into your organization.
I mean, if you wait half a month, you're waiting too long.
I agree.
Levers are meant to be like day after 2 days. And like, if you don't want to be that company where it's, October 28th, with 30% short of goal, what are we going to do about it? Well, nothing now. Like we've waited too long. Like, you know what I mean? Like you should be pulling that like, day 3, we're trending 10% behind. What are we going to do to make it up?
Right.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
That could be even simply you putting a calendar reminder on your calendar and sending out a video to your whole team, whether you use Google Chat or whatever you use.
I mean, you can do that, but really, you just need reporting. You need daily reporting on the things that are most important.
Of course.
Reporting on the rest, and monthly on reporting on stuff that you don't pull levers on.
Yeah, so here's my question: whose job is this? Because obviously it's everybody's. It's everybody's track, right?
It's not everybody's job.
Everybody should be helping track, right? You got to be entering. What I mean is, if you do something, you have to log it, you have to record it, so it can be tracked, right?
Right.
Unless it's automatically done for you. But whose job is it to compile this and organize this information so that a business owner and their team can come together and look at the information to make decisions?
Number one, you could super automate this, like way more than people realize. Even if you're using a CRM, like you could pull it into Excel and fully automate this whole process very easily. But the simple answer is like, if call volume is the issue, it's your marketing or your call center person. If it's technician closing is the issue, it's your service manager. If it's installation issues, it's your installation manager. If it's sales issues, it's the sales manager, right? And then all of these individual reports feed automatically into a larger report where it makes it super obvious.
Okay. So everybody owns. So essentially, each
they own their department, which is that's the way it is. Now, it doesn't mean other people can't creatively think and help, but ultimately, that service manager is in charge of the service department. And if numbers aren't hit, or we have issues, or whatever, it's their problem. It's their fault. They're the one I come praise. They're the one I blame.
And when they come
to the owner, it leads up to the owner too. If I haven't set them up for success and I haven't held them accountable, whatever, that's my fault. Right. But you're in charge of your department.
So then there has to be this expectation on them somewhat that when they come to the morning meetings with the report of what's going on, they also come with ideas, they come with solutions, and that their solutions don't have to be necessarily correct. Again, that doesn't matter. It's that they're forcing their brain. It's becoming habitual that they start forcing their brains to think about solutions. And the solutions could be brainstormed amongst the team. You'll probably come up with the best solutions by a combination of different thoughts. But eventually there will be predictable solutions that everybody's probably going to agree on. So coming to the meeting, not just with the intention to report, but the intention to solve too, will change that meeting and change your business.
This is fascinating.
I think that kind of wraps us up.
Yeah.
We touched on levers, what they are, the importance of them, and building them into your culture, and then building them out. And we also talked about some common easy levers such as text and email and telemarketing, and the order in which to roll those out too is important. So feel free to listen back to this, take notes, reach out to us if you have any further questions on levers. We have a lot of resources on levers. We're actually building out a course, so you can reach out about that too. And if it's ready, I'm happy to get you going with it. Our email is laura@growwithclover.com or support@growwithclover.com, and the same for Zach. Zach, is it Zach at Power Selling Pros?
Zachary, Zachary.
There you go. Okay. So guys, thank you for spending that couple of minutes with us, 35, 40 minutes. We hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we did recording it. Take care, pull levers, and reach out if you need any help at all. Thanks, guys.
All right, before you go, don't forget to follow us. Don't forget to like us. Please share this with the world. We appreciate it. And go change the world, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to Lip Service for Contractors. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to leave us a review in the App Store and don't forget to share with your friends. Ideas are cheap. Implementation is what separates the winners from the watchers. Go out and implement these ideas. See you on the next episode of Lip Service for Contractors.